Welcome to Outdoorsy, the podcast where we are redefining the word outdoorsy itself. I'm your host, Madeleine. Today on Outdoorsy, I am honored to introduce a guest whose mission aligns perfectly with ours here, making the outdoors more accessible and empowering for everyone. Nicole Snell is an award-winning international speaker, self-defense expert, and outdoor enthusiast with a passion for empowering women and people of all identities to adventure confidently and safely. You may have seen her on National Geographic, Women's Health, NBC News, Backpacker.com, Hoka TV, or REI's podcast, and that's just to name a few. As the CEO of Girls Fight Back, Nicole has dedicated her career to teaching self-defense and personal safety, specifically for solo travelers, hikers, and outdoor enthusiasts. Her work not only is just about physical safety, but also about giving people the tools to reclaim their independence and embrace the outdoors with confidence. Nicole's expertise in self-defense combined with her love for the outdoors makes her a true trailblazer for advocating for a safer, more inclusive outdoor experience for all. I'm so excited to dive into her journey, her incredible work, and how we can all feel more empowered in nature. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Madeleine. I am so thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Yay! I'm so excited. So let's just start off with talking about your relationship to the outdoorsy community and the outdoorsy world as a whole. Let's just jump right in.
Yeah, so I have always been outdoorsy. Before that was even a word. I grew up in the deserts of Southern California, and so Joshua Tree National Park was my backyard, but we didn't go often because my family wasn't outdoorsy. We went very few times in my childhood there, even though it was right in our backyard. But I would go out and I would just walk in the desert. I would sit in my front yard and play with the dirt. I would catch lizards. I would watch the sunset. Was just so connected to learning about like the insects and the plants and the animals, and they would we would have coyotes and roadrunners that would walk by our front window, and so I really have always been connected to that feeling I get when I'm outside and the fresh air and what am I going to see, what am I going to experience, and I've carried that with me into my adult life where I go outside as often as I can, and I'm hiking in different countries around the world and trying to do new and different experiences, and I just feel so at peace, connected, grounded, and free when I'm outside.
I love what you shared about growing up and just kind of paying attention to like the bugs and the animals and the flora and the fauna, because I feel like that's how so many people started having a love and appreciation and reverence for the outdoors, is just from being a kid and poking around in the dirt.
Yeah, really. Just because you're like, oh, what is that? That moves. Okay, what's this? And then you're asking questions and you're being really curious and you're discovering things. And I feel like I am constantly curious. The outdoors keeps me curious. I want to know what that is. I want to know what this is. I'll see a new caterpillar. I was just on a hike and I saw a caterpillar I'd never seen before. And I Googled it immediately as I went home. And so now the next time I see it, I'll know and I can share that information. So it's about learning, constantly learning and sharing and realizing that we're never going to know everything. And that's not the point. The point is to just exist and experience it in the moment.
That level of curiosity and constant learning is one of the things that I think brings people back to the outdoors every single time, because there's, like you said, always something new to be learned and explored. It's so amazing. And that sense of wonder that we feel now in adulthood brings us back to that feeling when we were kids. It's just so lovely.
Yes, I agree 100%.
So how have you found belonging in the outdoor community?
I create my own belonging in the outdoors because when I was a kid, it was okay. We were kids, we're all playing. But as you get older, then the stereotypes start kicking in, right? Then it's like, oh, you can't do this because you're a girl. Oh, you can't do this because you're black. Oh, you can't do this because, and just fill in the reason, right? The stereotype of why you shouldn't, why you won't like it, why you're not going to be good at it, why you shouldn't be out there, why you don't really belong here and you should try something else. And so growing up, I didn't have a lot of role models for the outdoors, but I just knew I loved it. So I just did it anyways. I've always been that stubborn person where I'm going to do it. If you tell me I can't do it, I'm just going to do it more. And you can't tell me that there's not anything that I can do. And you can't tell me that I belong because I'm here. So I belong. Just my existence means I belong. And you can't tell me any different. And so that's what I've done my whole life. I would go when I started traveling when I was in my early 20s, and I would be somewhere and doing a tour. People are like, oh, well, you're by yourself. Because I do a lot of solo travel, obviously. Oh, you're by yourself? Well, I've never seen a woman travel by herself. Oh, well, are you sure you're going to like this? And I'm like, just don't worry about me. Just worry about you. And I'm going to enjoy my time regardless of what you think of me, what you think about where I should be and what I should do. Your perceptions about me do not affect me and my feelings of joy and wonder in the outdoors. And then as I have lived in LA for so many years, I started connecting with other folks. I started doing group hikes and connecting with community. And I was a hike leader for Black Girls Trekking for 7 years and leading other Black women on hikes and adventures and finding that belonging with others who look like me. That was really special because I'd always just found it on my own. But then also to find it with others and to help others who might not have felt like they belonged and create a safe space for them to start exploring these activities and these outdoor spaces that they maybe wouldn't have done if they didn't have this group. That was really special to me. So helping other people find belonging is also really valuable and part of my finding my belonging too.
Everything you just said about finding community and how refreshing and eye-opening that can be after you've been kind of just doing it on your own for so long is something I want to dive into when we get into talking a little bit more about inclusivity and belonging and everything like that. But before we jump into that, I really want to give you the platform to talk about Girls Fight Back and your journey into how you got started with personal self-defense education, because that's a huge piece of your story that I really want to make sure we can dive into because it's pretty incredible what you've been able to build there.
Oh, thank you so much. I have always really been passionate about moving my body and finding strength in my body. I did sports in school. I did sports in, junior high, high school. I've done martial arts off and on. I'm not a black belt, or I don't have any belts in any particular style, but I've always embraced the idea of learning how my body moves, learning where my strengths are, and just kind of, trying out different styles, karate and jujitsu and Brazilian jiu-jitsu and boxing and things like that, because I really enjoy like the athleticism and the sports aspect of it. And so what ended up getting me more focused on learning more like self-defense specifically is that I was dating a guy many years ago, and we were play fighting in my living room and play wrestling. And he pinned me to the ground and then laughed, haha, I've got you pinned. And I had this moment that just clicked in my brain where I said, wait a second, if this was real, I don't know what I would do. What would I do? And so that is what was the catalyst for me to start seeking out. Well, what would I do? Hopefully this never happens, especially with him or with it. But if it did, what would I do? And so I started seeking out information. What would I do? And I took some classes and had learned some things. And then what ended up happening where I really got into with Girls Fight Back was I had a 12-year career in TV production. So I was a TV producer and did projects around the world and thought that was going to be my career path, right? That was the way I was going. But in end of 2013, I was contacted by a group I was involved with in college that did domestic violence prevention training. And so they had been contracted by the United States Navy to do trainings at military installations around the world. And so they were reaching out to past facilitators and asking if we wanted to come back and help. And I said, I would love to help, but I have a full-time job, TV job. I'll do what I can. I'll be as available as I can be. And then I got laid off from my job. They restructured the company, and there was no need for our department anymore. And so we were all let go. And we were finishing a project, and that project wrapped right when the military contract was going to start. And so I started working with this group and found out that they were partnering with an agency to help them with all the military contracting, paperwork and stuff. Because it's a lot, right? Government paperwork is a lot. So they hired this agency that owned Girls Fight Back. And I was looking at their website and I saw Girls Fight Back, and I, dug in and I saw, oh my gosh, they are teaching self-defense at the time, it was simply to women in colleges, only to women in colleges. And I thought, oh my gosh, how do I get involved in this? I want to do this too. And so I emailed the owner and I asked for a job. Hey, are you hiring any speakers? And she said, no, not right now, but if we have any openings in the future, we'll let you know. And 3 months later, they had an opening. got applied, I was hired, I got trained, and part of my training was to take and graduate from a 20-hour full contact self-defense course through a company called Impact Personal Safety, where it is adrenalized training, it is realistic, scenario based, and it was unlike anything I had ever taken in my whole life. And graduated from the class and decided I want to teach this too, because it was transformative to reconnect to your power as a woman, your body, your mind, your voice, all the things that society tells us that we actually don't have control over, or the stereotypes that we're weak or we're helpless or there's nothing that we can do, which just plays into those stereotypes that are meant to try to oppress us and keep us from recognizing our power and challenging the oppressive structures. It just rewrote all of that. And so I started my journey at that point of being a speaker for Girls Fight Back, getting trained to be an instructor with Impact Personal Safety, while simultaneously traveling to countries around the world, training the Navy on bystander intervention and domestic violence prevention. So it was this very interesting way to get into this journey. And then in 2019, the owner of Girls Fight Back decided to sell the company. And by that point, I had been working with her to create gender inclusive programs. So we have our Students Fight Back program, which is for colleges and high schools for all genders. And then I had started creating some programs specifically for companies, and because companies and employee resource groups were reaching out, wanting, this type of training for their groups. And so I had already started helping her develop these things. And she decided to sell the company. And I just had this thought, what if I bought the company? And so I emailed her and said, hey, would you consider selling the company to me? And she said, yeah. And I said, all right. So started the paperwork in 2020. I bought the company, then COVID hit, and we all know what happened. But that is how I got into this work with Girls Fight Back.
Absolutely incredible journey that you've taken to get there. I love hearing that. And I love hearing all of the, ways in which you've learned to come back into your own power too. And then not only did that for yourself, but have taken that and used that to fuel that empowerment and encouragement for other people in the world. I mean, it's so powerful that you've been able to say, okay, this was incredible and transformative for me. Now I'm going to give it back to other people.
Yeah,
absolutely amazing.
I want as many people as possible to have this type of education, because I feel like it's just so beneficial in so many different ways. And that is my passion with the work that I'm doing, is trying to address the misconceptions around self-defense, to address the stereotypes that exist around, different bodies and different genders, and to give people this empowerment, because we carry it with us throughout our lives in every situation we face. It's not just about if we're facing a dangerous situation. It's not just about the situation that really pushed me into wanting to do this, right? Being in a play fight and being pinned to the ground, right? It's not just for that, but what I learned will help me with that. But it will also help me if someone says something inappropriate at a work site, or a friend, disrespects me, or someone I'm dating, throws up five red flags, and now I know what to say and how to handle the situation. It is knowing that we have these options available, and how and when we use them are up to us, and that empowerment just spreads. It's like throwing a rock in a lake, and the ripples just go, and eventually those ripples reach the other side of the lake. And that's what I'm doing. I'm hoping that I can throw a rock and that these ripples will reach everyone.
One of the things that I love about what you've done, both with Girls Fight Back, but also your Outdoor Defense YouTube series, and a lot of the content that you've created and shared online, is what you were saying. It's not even necessarily about what do I do if I am physically attacked by a person. It's how am I more aware of what's going on? How do I respond to microaggressions? How do I use the tools that are on my body to make myself proactively safe, not just defensively safe? Like, you have taken all of these other nuanced elements of personal safety and self-defense and empowerment and broken them down in a way that I find really approachable and really easy to learn from, because you also show them too, physically, and you're talking about them, not just, writing an article about them necessarily. So it's really incredible, all these little pieces of self-defense and empowerment that I never thought about until I came across your content.
Thank you. And hearing that is really humbling, and affirming, because that's what I hope, right? Like, you put things out there and you hope that it's received in the way that you're putting it out, but you're never really sure because you can't control how people are going to interpret the information that you share. So to hear that that is how you felt about it is very affirming. So thank you, because that's what I'm hoping to give to people, is to make it approachable, to make it accessible, to make it something that doesn't seem like a burden or oppressive, or you have to remember these 10 things and here are the list of do's and don'ts. I don't do any of that. Like, if you look at any of my content, I don't give lists of do's and don'ts. I don't even give tips, because I give tips for like solo hiking, like what do you bring for a solo hike, and like water, because that's universal. Everyone knows you bring water on a hike, right? Like, that's not going to change. But when it comes to safety, tips aren't necessarily helpful because everyone is going to respond in a different way. No two situations are the same. We all come into situations with our own background, our own experiences. What if that tip doesn't work? Now it's like, oh, well, that tip didn't work. So I instead call them strategies. Strategies, they are tools for your toolbox. So here's an option. It's not a tip, because tips imply that it's going to work every time. That if A happens, you're going to do B. But safety is not like that. It's very nuanced. Violence is a complex social issue where there's not just one solution. And interpersonal relationships are complex and nuanced. There isn't always going to be one thing that works for everybody. So instead of tips, I say strategies. Strategies and options. Here are your options. People are say, oh, well, if this happens, what do I do? Well, okay. First, if someone's sharing something that happened, I always affirm what you did is the right thing. What I teach is not about telling anyone that you should have done it differently or you shoulda. There's a lot of that out there. I want to encourage people and empower people to know that whatever they do, whatever they've done to survive a situation is the right thing to do. Whatever gets you to safety is the right thing to do. And what I teach is about giving people additional options and these skills and these strategies. So instead of feeling like, oh, there's nothing I can do if I face something, they can instead say, all right, I have a range of things that I could potentially do. I get to choose if I want to use them, if it's going to work this time. Not if it's going to work this time, but if it applies to my situation, if I feel like it would apply to my situation. And that's empowering, to walk through the world with knowledge versus just walking through the world saying, well, I don't really have anything that I could do, or I don't know what I could do. The not knowing what to do makes a situation more scary, because you're not sure what to do. Like, if I didn't know how to change my tire on my car and I got a flat tire, that'd be a really scary situation. I wouldn't know what to do. Maybe I have AAA, maybe I don't. Maybe I'm somewhere where I can't get a cell signal and now I'm dependent on someone coming to help me. That might be really frightening for me to think when I go on a road trip. What happens if I lose a tire? But if you know how to change your tire and you have the tools, okay, great. Then you don't go out there with that fear. You hope you don't have to change your tire on the road. But if you do, you say, all right, well, I know what to do. And that knowledge is powerful.
Absolutely. One of the things that you've talked about is kind of having this toolbox, this like kit of things that you can pull from. It doesn't mean like one tool is going to fit every single job, right? It just, you have options that you can run through in your brain. But if you haven't equipped yourself with that toolbox, then you're just empty-handed and you don't have any options for when you do encounter a situation. I know I've had moments in my outdoor adventure career and experienced something, and because of the prep that I had done mentally, kind of running through different scenarios in my head, learning from some of the strategies that you've taught on your channel, I had options to choose from in that moment. And in hindsight, you can always look back and critique how you responded in a certain situation. Yeah. But at the time, you had the tools in front of you to choose from. You selected the one that you thought was the right one at that time. And it doesn't matter what that tool was if you ended up safe. And, you can be like, oh, well, I should have done that. I should have done that. But are you safe? Great. Then you used the right tool to get to that point.
Yes. And that's something that we have to stop doing to ourselves, right? Is second guessing ourselves and saying, oh, I should have. I mean, and the same thing happens, if you have a conversation and you don't maybe have the comeback you wanted to say. And then later on, you're talking with your friends, you're saying, I should have said that. We could do that when it comes to situations like that. But when it comes to safety situations, it's important that we don't blame ourselves and that we don't judge ourselves for how we responded, because we responded in the way that we had in the moment and it got us to safety. And that's what matters. matters, especially for survivors. Like, I'm a survivor of violence myself. And there are still times when, before I started doing this work, I think I would blame myself more because I didn't have the victim advocacy training. I hadn't, done the research. I hadn't worked on myself and been to therapy. And now I look back and I say, oh, I can't blame myself for those things. And that's something I really try to express when I'm talking to people. Because you never know if there are survivors in your audience, in my classes that are watching my videos. And what I want to say to survivors, it is never your fault. It is never your fault. Nothing that you did or didn't do caused the violence to happen. The violence is solely the responsibility of the criminal and the perpetrator that committed the violence against you. And we cannot blame ourselves for how we responded, because we responded the way we could in the moment. And that's all that matters. If we are here today, that means we survived. And we have to give ourselves that credit and that validation of, I did what I needed to do to survive, and I am here today. And I have a future that I can look forward to, and I can heal and learn and try to move into my future with more confidence and power.
Amazing. I cannot agree more. It's such a powerful message. So if we're kind of talking about the safety topic, I wanna jump into maybe talking about some strategies, advice for people who face really real fears about physical safety, especially in the outdoors. A lot of the people that are tuning into this podcast and following along with this journey, maybe they haven't had very many experiences in the outdoors, or maybe they did as a child but have been nervous to do so on their own, or maybe they want to start doing things independently without a group, and face real fears about going out into the outdoors, whatever that might look like for them, especially if they exist in marginalized bodies that aren't oftentimes represented in the outdoor industry. I would love to hear from you kind of what strategies or advice you have for those people. And I will give the caveat to everybody listening, like, if you want concrete, like, strategies and a little bit more examples of how to address specific situations, I encourage you all to go check out Nicole's YouTube series and also Girls Fight Back, because there's gonna be more concrete stuff that you could learn from that. But just kind of like as a broader topic, Nicole, I'd love to hear from you some of your thoughts and advice that you give for people who are afraid and really want to feel empowered to go out and not be afraid of their physical safety.
So that is why I created Outdoor Defense, for exactly that question that you just asked. And so Outdoor Defense is a project of mine that I started in 2019, but I had friends telling me that I should combine my love of the outdoors and self-defense for years prior to that. But I just thought nobody would listen. Just thought nobody would want to hear about it. So I thought, no, I'm not going to do this thing. And then I finally did the thing and realized, oh my gosh, this connects so much to people, because there is this fear of going outside. For me, in full transparency, I experienced violence as a child. And for me, getting out of the house, even to the backyard, to the front yard, to the field next to the yard, to the wash, the desert wash 3 blocks down where I could just go walk and be by myself, that was safety for me. The outdoors was what was safe for me. And I know that that's not the case for everyone. For a lot of people, going outdoors is the epitome of danger, right? Especially if you're by yourself. Oh my gosh, there's nobody around. There's nobody to help me. I won't know what to do. What happens if this happens? All of a sudden I'm by myself. That makes it more dangerous. And I'm saying all these are stereotypes. These are not facts. These are just stereotypes that exist out there. So I created Outdoor Defense and put what I know about self-defense into these episodes to help people with the mindset. And if you have, I'm sure you've noticed, but I have 60 episodes of Outdoor Defense on YouTube, all free episodes. They're less, like most are 3 to 4 minutes. I only have maybe 4 or 5 of those 60 that actually talk about physical skills and show physical skills, because most of self-defense is not physical. Most of it is mindset, it's verbal, it's body language. It is knowing that you are worth fighting for. It is knowing that you have options if you face something. And so what I would say to anyone who is afraid of going outdoors, especially someone in, from a historically excluded group, right? Me as a Black woman getting into the outdoors, I talk to other Black women who say, I would never do that. On my TikTok all the time, when I post a solo hiking video, they're like, oh girl, I could never do that. I'm like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. I don't want to force you to do something you don't want to do, but I'm here to tell you that if that desire is there in you and you want to try, I am here to encourage you and tell you that you absolutely can. And the same goes for other marginalized identities. So I would say that First things first is that violence exists in the world, right? We cannot deny that that is a fact, and that fact is often what brings fear to people, the fear that they are going to experience violence. But a lot of times people go outdoors with the fear that they're going to experience violence from a stranger. And statistically speaking, women are most often assaulted by people they know. 86% of the time, according to RAINN, women are assaulted by people we know. Family, friends, domestic partners, acquaintances, things like that. People in our life that we know. And so it is not statistically likely that it's going to be the stranger on the trail. Although it happens. Yes, it happens. We hear those stories, but we often only exclusively hear those stories in the media. We don't hear the stories of, the other times. Every 68 seconds, someone in the United States is sexually assaulted. And we don't hear every one of those stories on the news at 10, right? We hear a story that is more a sensational story. I was attacked in Madrid, and I got out of the situation using my self-defense skills. It did not result in a fight. And I tried to share the story with media, and nobody picked up the story. And because why would they? It was a success story where nobody was injured, nobody was hurt, nobody, and so there are stories like this that exist. There are most of the time when we are setting boundaries and addressing situations before they become confrontations, then that is still a self-defense scenario. That is still a success story when we can walk away and there's no fight, because the best fight is the one never fought. But we don't hear about those as often. And so it creates this fear that going outside is going to be the most dangerous thing, and that is not statistically true. We are not more likely to experience danger when we're in the outside, when we're in the outdoors. So that is what I would say to people who are concerned and they want to get outside is first, fill yourself with education about the outdoors in general, right? Like making sure you have the 10 essentials and looking, researching your trail and handling those types of the physical aspects of the hiking, right? And making sure you have enough snacks and things like that. And then the safety aspect, I encourage people to learn self-defense. I encourage them, whether you learn from me or you learn from someone else, I don't care how you learn it, but having that knowledge and that information is going to help you feel more powerful. So that if you run into somebody on the trail who's creeping you out and your intuition sparks, instead of feeling fear, like, what do I do? Knowing that you can stand in your power and just use your voice. I was on a solo backpacking trip this summer, and this group of guys, and I didn't feel any weird intuitiveness from them. I just felt like they were really curious, but still, I don't owe information to anyone. I don't owe niceness to anyone. I'm a very nice person, but I don't owe niceness to anyone. And my choosing to protect my safety doesn't make me a mean or a bad person. And even if it does, so what, right? People, especially women, we're so socialized to, we have to be nice. You have to be nice all the time. And if we're not, then we're awful. No, you don't. And they kept asking me where I was going to go. I was like, you're asking a lot of questions. I don't know where I'm going. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you. And I just told them that. And they were like, oh, okay. So just being direct is so powerful. And there's a fear that if we're direct or we set a boundary or we say no, that's going to escalate the situation. And I will tell you statistically that is not the case, that more likely than not, setting a firm boundary and being direct and assertive is more likely to prevent something from escalating. And there's a lot of different verbal strategies you can use, right? It's not always, hey, I said don't talk to me. It could be something else, right? Any way that you verbally get out of the situation is an option for you. But it is this fear of, well, if I say something, I'm going to make them mad, that takes away our voice, right? It continues to silence us. That fear of violence silences us from speaking up and asserting ourselves, even though it has been shown that doing so, asserting yourself, setting a strong boundary, using your voice is more effective at preventing escalation. So it's just attacking a lot of the myths that are out there. And again, the knowledge and the information and the education is what really will help with that.
Thank you for sharing all of those stories. I think it's really, really valuable for people to hear real world examples. And like you said, a lot of the time these stories don't get told because they're not sensational enough, and they were success stories, so they just don't get told. But I think it's so valuable for people to hear real world scenarios and then think about how they would react in that situation. I've had a couple of experiences myself where I did set a verbal boundary, shared that story with my following online, and there was criticism from all sides of the argument of you were too nice or you weren't nice enough or whatever it might be. But the bottom line is using your voice and using those strategies that you talk about will ultimately be more likely to get you out of that situation. And like you were saying, de-escalation is always the goal, right? Avoiding the fight, avoiding that issue. really the goal. So if you can get there by setting a boundary, whether that be verbally or even just with your body language, physically, you've shared a lot of strategies about that, what to do if you're on the trail and someone's following right up close to you, or some person's approaching you trying to chit chat with you that you don't want to talk with. Being able to stand in your power, whether that's just with your body language or with your words, is so important and so valuable.
There have been so many situations in my life as I've solo traveled and hiked and things where I've had these just short, small moments, and they're like, the situation is probably no more than 1 or 2 minutes and it's done. And I started making a list of them. Eventually I'm going to write a book and I'm going to include all of these in there because, like, I will tell you really quickly. One, I was on a trip for a wedding. It was a destination wedding, and we were all out, and we're at night, we're walking, doing a bar crawl. I don't drink, but I'm going out with my friends and hanging out, and we're walking, and one of the guides, there's like 3 guides, and I was kind of towards the end, and this one guide was walking with those of us at the back of the group as we're getting ready to cross the street and go to the next bar. And he kept, like, we were getting ready to cross the street, and he kept like grabbing my arm, and I was like, okay, this is weird. And then we got up to like the street, and then he like kept grabbing my arm, and I was like, stop touching me. I am a grown woman. I do not need you grabbing my arm to cross the street. Stop touching me. And he said, oh, it's just a busy street. I'm like, I am an adult. I do not need you to grab me, hold me, guide me across the street. I am an adult. Stop touching me. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then he stopped. And that was it. And he avoided me for the rest of the night. Great. Win-win, right? But some people would feel uncomfortable saying, oh, I don't want to tell him not to touch me. Why? It's your body. You get to decide who has access to your body, your space, and your time. They don't. You do. And if you're not comfortable with someone being close to you or touching you, even just, it wasn't a sexual touch, but it was annoying and I didn't like it. And that's enough. You don't need to grab my arm like I'm a child to hold me back from the street. Come on, right? So just things like that. It doesn't have to be a situation that is a fight or, really dangerous or threatening. It's if I feel uncomfortable, I have the right to speak up and use my voice. So these skills apply to everything in your life, right? Not just the outdoors. I focus on the outdoors because that's what tends to be scary for people, but it's for everything. And I did this one episode called What Ifs, because I was hiking to, where was I? I was in Mammoth. I was hiking to Duck Lake, and I was on the way. There's like this field, like this flat area on the way to Pika Lake. And so I had went to Pika Lake, and I was walking back, and I'm, a good 7-8 miles from the trailhead at this point. And I'm out there in the middle of nowhere, right? There's just this big, beautiful lake here. There's just wide open field. And I just had this thought that for a lot of people, this is their idea of scary, of being out here, being alone. Oh my gosh, what happens if someone out here means me harm? And I did an episode right then and there, because I was like, this is what the fear is. The fear is not what if it happens. The fear is, what if it happens and I don't know what to do? What do I do? How would I handle it? And the messaging we get, especially as women, but there's a lot, non-binary individuals get this messaging. Trans individuals also get this messaging about certain bodies that are capable or not capable, weak versus strong, and powerful versus incapable, and allow those stereotypes to define us and define what we're capable of, then that adds to the fear. But when we realize, no, I am truly capable, if we revise that thinking, instead of thinking, oh my gosh, what if I'm out here and someone means me harm? Think instead of, okay, what if I'm out here, someone means me harm? That is a really bad day for them. Like, they're going to be really sorry that they tried to mess with me. What am I going to do to this person who is threatening my safety? I'm going to try to get out of it without having to, physically defend myself, but those skills are there. And knowing that those skills are there adds to that confidence. And research has shown that people who learn the physical part of self-defense and know how to use their body and what options you have, that means you're less likely to use those physical skills, because you're more likely to speak up for yourself, to set those boundaries, to trust your intuition, to be more aware, recognizing risk, and feeling more confident in setting those boundaries as soon as you notice something that is off.
Everything you just said is so powerful. There's that mindset shift that you have when you have knowledge and you have the skill set. how much that impacts just your mindset and the way that you're able to approach sifting through fears in your own brain. So instead of, like you said, being afraid that something might happen to you, just being like, that's going to be a rough day for them, or how embarrassing for them. You know, I think I think that's a helpful mindset to be able to shift into. And it's really hard because we do, unfortunately, fall into this kind of like scared mentality where we're the victim in the situation and there's nothing we can do, and oh my gosh. But then shifting that mindset to being like, no, I'm powerful, I'm badass, I know how to protect myself, I know how to stand in my power, I know how to speak up, I know how to take care of this situation. Yeah, it just mentally changes everything for you. So I hope that people who are listening at home feel empowered to really challenge their mindset, and really, if they are going out and being in a situation where you're feeling fear, whether that's an actual fear from someone threatening your space, or just like you said, sitting in the outdoors and thinking about like the unknown, or all the what ifs, or all of the imaginary situations that might be real, you are able to kind of go through that mental exercise of thinking through, okay, no, this isn't how I'm going to think about this situation. I'm going to change that. I think would be really powerful for everybody listening at home. So Nicole, this is just so valuable and so amazing. I wish we could keep talking for like 5 hours, but you are such a busy person. I want to be respectful of your time. This has been such an incredibly valuable episode. Again, I encourage everybody who's listening at home to go check out Girls Fight Back, and also go check out Nicole's YouTube series. Also, her social media is fantastic as well, shorter clips of these videos. So go check this out, because if you are wanting to really stand in your power, like Nicole's content is really what helped me feel more confident as a woman going out into the outdoors, mostly by myself. It has helped me so much, and it has truly, Nicole, the content that you've put out has helped me avoid some really scary situations and de-escalate them from my experiences. And I just am so grateful to you and everything that you've been building and doing. It's just incredible. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so sorry that you had those experiences, but I'm really grateful that I was able to provide something to help you on your journey, and that really means the world. It's why I do this work. It's hoping that nobody ever has to use the skills, but knowing most people are going to be using the verbal skills, and the boundary setting skills, pretty much daily, right? Even in our personal relationships, but just knowing that we have it there in case we need it is valuable. And thank you for sharing that. I'm really glad that I was able to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's just that feeling equipped with knowledge. It just is so empowering. Yeah, specifically some of those skill sets that you've taught, those strategies about body language and using your voice and standing in your power have just helped me so much, and I know have helped so many other people. So thank you. Nicole, before we wrap up, tell us what's next for you. What's going on? What upcoming projects, things that you're excited about that you want to share with our listeners here today?
Well, I have some really big news to share. I am now a TEDx speaker. I have been selected to speak at TEDx Jacksonville in November. And so thrilled and so excited. And if anyone can attend the event live, that'd be amazing. If not, it is going to be plastered all over my social media. You'll be able to watch the recording. Prepare to be sick of me. I'm going to be sharing that everywhere. But I am so grateful for the opportunity, and I am just humbled and ecstatic that I was selected to speak and to, share some of my expertise and my passion on the world stage. So this is such an amazing opportunity. I'm excited to share.
I cannot wait to watch that recording, and I'll be sharing it like crazy on my channels too. So exciting, Nicole. I mean, so well deserved. The work that you've done is so impactful. It is a no-brainer to me that of course you would have this opportunity, but I know you've worked really hard for it, and I'm just so thrilled for you. And tell our listeners what the topic is too.
The topic is how self-defense education can help open up our access to the outdoors.
So perfect. And we're probably going to need to have you just do like a recurring series on this podcast where you're sharing this stuff. Like maybe you could just take over the podcast. It's fine. Like, we'll just have you come back all the time. No, but seriously, the knowledge and information that you're sharing with us is so valuable. And exactly, it does that. It opens up the outdoors and makes it more accessible and approachable for people who in the past have felt intimidated, scared, nervous, whatever it might be, just feeling empowered to go be in the outdoors. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us today. I just appreciate you endlessly. If you would like to connect with Nicole, with Girls Fight Back, anything that she's doing, all of the links to her social media, her websites, all of those things will be in the show notes. And please go follow her, connect with her, give her some love online, because oh my gosh, we need to get her story and message and expertise out to more people. So Nicole, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me as a guest, Madeleine. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you. I love all of your content online as well. So I think the synergy of us connecting and doing this is wonderful. So just thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Well, thank you all for tuning into this episode of Outdoorsy. And just remember, you belong out there.